Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Puppets have always fascinated children. But did you know that puppets are also used for it? It's not just restricted to entertainment, but the benefits of puppet play include helping children learn various academic and social skills. Various studies have proved that puppets are very effective aids to foster cooperation, learning creativity, and improving communication in preschoolers. Puppets shows for kids have been used in classrooms, homes, hospitals, and care centers for fun and learning. They have been used as educational resources for decades. The primary motive of using puppetry in pedagogical process is to educate the students. Young minds at their tender age can be molded into any direction and to stimulate in them the artistic creativity and develop their explorative and observation skills. Various methods are used. Hello, everyone. This is Jayashree Bhake, the principal of Orchidsa International School, Malad West, Mumbai, India. I am so fortunate that today we have with us Ms. Neelima Penumarthy, a producer and a storyteller from the United Kingdom. She is an audiobook publisher and a puppet show producer based in London. Her motto is to connect cultures through stories. She was born and brought up in Hyderabad, and she came to London in 1996 in the prestigious British Clearing Scholarship to pursue MSc in chemistry at the Imperial College. She settled in London and is blessed with two sons. She serendipitously became an audiobook publisher. The first audiobook, Ramayana, an ancient Indian epic, was published in 2016, written and narrated by her two sons, Shreyas and Ayur. It is indeed good to know this, ma'am, that they were just 17 and 12 when they did this. She produced a puppet show on the Ramayana, which was shown live in the iconic Mayor of London's Diwali in the Trafalgar Square in 2018 and 19 as well, to the rapturous audience. In 2020, her filmed version to the show was the main event in the Diwali celebrations in the Indian embassies in London, Paris, and Berlin, and which was available in 6 languages: English, French, German, Spanish, Hindi, and Gujarati, thus taking Ramayana all over the world. She's worked with young teenagers from the European schools in London who provided voiceovers to those languages. She worked with Gujarati School in London for the Gujarati version of the puppet show and with the Kendriya Vidyalaya Uppal for the Hindi version of the same show. Their show was featured in Rome with the Italian subtitles during the Diwali session in 2020. She has also worked in the union's Industria Italiana to produce the Italian version for Diwali in 2022. And for the Indian Independence Day, they released their 3rd volume, the audiobook titled A Brief History of Indian Independence, from the Mughals to the Mahatma, written and narrated again by 2 teenagers, Arush and Ayur. This 70 minutes audiobook has been receiving a great response and has been endorsed by none other than Dr. Shashi Tharoor, the famous historian, author, and parliamentarian. For Diwali 2021, she screened her puppet show film at various schools, hospitals, care homes, and community centers. For 2022 Diwali, they have collaborated with Italian Hindu Union and produced their puppet show in Italian. Ma'am, it is wonderful going through your profile, and there are many more feathers to your cap. Welcome, Ms. Neelima Penumarthy. It is indeed a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Jayashree Bhake, and thank you to Vidyadan as well for giving me an opportunity to share my work and share this excitement of connecting with the School of Your Repute.
Thank you. Ma'am, with your due permission, should we start with the interview? Because now this is getting really
Of course.
wonderful and
Yes.
mesmerizing. So, ma'am, to begin with, I just wanted to know
Please, you can
what
call me
exactly
Neelima.
is your motto? Connect.
There's no ma'am. You can call me Neelima.
Thank you,
There's no
Nilima.
need to call me ma'am.
Thank you. So, like I stated to begin with, Nilima, please tell us more about your motto, Connect Culture. The term is really beautiful.
Thank you. Yes, it is. I mean, I mean, India, we like in India are extremely familiar with cultures, different cultures within the same country, right? There's there's a there's a divide in the way we celebrate things between the north and the south. So having grown up in India, I'm already familiar with the fact that festivals connect different parts of India, therefore different ways of celebrating it. So we're connecting cultures within India itself. But outside of India, as you had gone through my sort of journey, you realize I've been here since 26 years and my two sons grew up here. So in most schools here in England, they teach a small part of the story behind some of the most popular festivals across different faiths. So in Hinduism, they chose Diwali. It's very brief. They just about touch it. They kind of give an overview of the story. So obviously, my boys have done storyboards and skits on the Ramayana, and have, because I'm from India, I go back to India very often. The boys have been to India several times, and they picked up books, and therefore they decided to write their own version. With regards to connecting cultures, I feel once you know the story behind a particular faith or a culture, you start appreciating them better. There are so many questions you have when you don't know the culture, or you may be disinterested as well. So, for example, if I mean, in North London, we have a lot of people from the Jewish faith. I'm not very, I know a few stories, I don't know a few stories behind their festivals. So the more I get to know their stories, it's almost like I feel connected to them. I understand and appreciate why they're doing what they're doing because I know the story. So I felt the same for Indians or Hindus who are all over the world to say, why are we celebrating Diwali? There is a story, and Ramayana is such a big epic from India. So the more you share your story, the more you actually bridge that gap between cultures. So I think stories are a wonderful and a fun medium to connect cultures.
Super. That really gives out the answers so beautifully. But then I also would like to know, why did you choose puppetry as a tool to connect culture?
Again, puppetry is an art form that is reasonably popular in most parts of India and also in Europe. So, going by my motto, connecting cultures, and the fact that puppets, I think, add an intriguing element to the show, which I found fascinating because puppets can't, as you can see, puppets can't change their expression. But when you are watching a puppet show, what tends to happen is you have to imagine that emotion on that wooden puppet or on that shadow puppet. So you're even more engrossed in the story than you would be with a person. Because, of course, I can animate, I can show my sadness, I can show my happiness. Whereas a puppet, when it's carved with a certain expression. After that, it's for you as the viewer to sort of see that anger, that happiness, that romance. So I think puppetry is more immersive, and it is genuinely a very comprehensive way of enjoying the show. And in this day and age where there are too many distractions, I think puppetry just channelizes your focus. That's how I felt. I've been to a few puppet shows here with my children, and I myself was immersed, and my boys were immersed. So I thought, if I'm going to produce a show, it has to be through puppets.
Yes, we could see those beautiful puppets behind you as well. Those are really enchanting. When we talk about connecting culture, we talk about puppetry as a tool for the connecting that culture. How did you choose Ramayana? Why was Ramayana being chosen for this particular, the first audiobook of yours?
Oh, as I mentioned, because the boys were doing skits and storyboards at school. So it typically happens in class 4 and 5. So year 4 and 5 is when they are introduced to the Ramayana. not extensively, just touched upon some of the main characters at schools, most schools in England and probably the UK. So and because I go to India often with the boys, they picked up several books from the Ramayana, ranging from Rajagopalachari's very absolutely wonderful narration, but in old style English, to some of the newer versions of the Ramayana. And the boys felt they wanted to write something that was more pertinent to their generation in a language that is more easy to understand, yet nuanced. So they embarked on it in 2012 when they were 9 and 13, and then they kept writing different versions of it over 4 years during the holidays. And then it was fun to take them to a recording studio when they were 12 and 17 in 2016. And by then, as they were going through the journey, I realized I wanted to keep my audiobooks concise. And so therefore the hour long. To your question about Ramayana, I mean, it is one of the greatest epic stories from India. And if we are celebrating Diwali across the world, it's only nice to know the story, share the story behind this big festival. And people are anyway introduced at school to some of the characters. So it's wonderful to sort of get them to appreciate a slightly longer version. So they see the colors, the music, they listen to the music from India, the language, and of course the storyline. And as I said, I feel the more people listen to stories from other cultures, the more they feel that connect. And then we all feel like one family very soon because we have some common topics. If not, if there's no common topic, how would you connect with someone? So
Absolutely correct. So we were talking about how Ramayana came into the picture, and now that Ramayana has become more global, so it's not restricted to just one country. Great to know this, ma'am, and great that you have been one of the person instrumental to do this. Ma'am, I also want you to, and I request you to shed some light on the role of puppetry in education.
I feel like, for example, recently when I went to Italy for the Italian version of the puppet show to Rome, there was another group from another, excuse me for not remembering the name of the country, but they are into shadow puppetry. So while they were doing the show, and as are three-dimensional, there are the relaxed shadow puppets as well. But there was a workshop where people just came there, drew the characters that they liked, irrespective of what the character was, even if it was not from the Ramayana. So, and then they had to cut it, and then they had to cut it in a manner where it became a shadow puppet. So people from all age groups had come to that workshop because it's a very mindful exercise. You are drawing a character that pleases your mind, you're cutting it, and then you are enacting it. So that is a simplistic way on paper. Whereas once you want to make a 3D puppet for children, I think it's such an engaging activity because they are drawing the character again. They are through that process, they're understanding how to draw that character. What kind of emotion do they want to show? Should they have some frown lines? Should they have a smile? Should they look scary? They're thinking about all those emotions as well. And then when they decide to make it 3D, they're thinking about the mathematical side of making something 3D, an object 3D, right? Because what should be the length of the leg? What should be how much should be the height, the weight of the head for it to hold up? So on a practical note, I think that gives them the ability to think artistically as well as mathematically when they go from paper to producing it in a 3D form. And it becomes a companion. I think a puppet, once they make it, it becomes their companion and they can start doing role play and they can start enacting. So there's a lot of storytelling that starts happening once they have that puppet in place. So what starts as a simple activity of just connecting some dots and probably cutting out moves on to become a 3D object. And from that 3D object, it becomes a real character in their story. So I think it covers the entire range of storytelling.
It surely does give the wings to their imagination. And like you correctly pointed out that, there are various aspects of education wherein puppetry can be used, be it a finger puppet or a stick puppet or a cloth puppet or a hand puppet for that matter. But yes, puppets are there in education from a long time. Yes, we do agree. Coming back to your Ramayana, ma'am, we have found those songs are so mesmerizing. What were your thoughts when you created those songs, and how did it actually happen?
So I am somebody from my childhood. I always relate to a particular topic through songs. Music is very, very crucial in my understanding of the world or understanding of a certain, especially religious things. I'm more into listening to bhajans and feel that divinity of who I am as a person. So growing up in India, I used to enjoy listening to the bhajans and feel the divinity of the place. So, and I always wondered how, so therefore on Ramayana, on Ram, Sita, and on that entire storyline, I'd heard many bhajans, right, growing up in India, which I love even till date. So I always wondered how a song on the Ramayana would sound in English, a beautifully composed song on any aspect of the Ramayana would sound in English. So when the puppet show was made, and again, growing up in India, Bollywood is big, so for us, songs are so crucial in storytelling too, right? So it is an important aspect of storytelling. So when the puppet show was ready, I was very keen that it had that beautiful opening song and the closing song to end it in a nostalgic way. So that was my blockbuster production. So, so then I reached out to these two young singer-songwriters, and again I had this. I was curious to know how would a non-Indian respond to a Ramayana, to writing a story on a song on the Ramayana, and therefore I had reached out to Sakshi Sen, who's of Indian origin, but she's born and brought up in London. So and then Abby Simmons is completely new to the Ramayana. So she's a beautiful singer. She's a puppetry artist as well. So I had attended one of her puppetry shows and it was like a musical. So she was doing her puppetry through songs. So therefore I reached out to both of them and Sachi beautifully captured Ram's love for Sita and sung it so well and so evocatively. And Abby Simmons had never heard of the Ramayana before, so I made her listen to the Ramayana audiobook. I never, to both the girls, I never said tap into this aspect or that aspect. All I told them was, I want two songs. One I could be using as an opening song, one as a closing song. So Sachi wrote Ram and Sita, and Abby wrote Life the Lambs. And Abby's is a little bit more. It's more interesting because in the sense that she's never heard the Ramayana before. So for her to capture that essence of the Ramayana as a non-Indian person was quite heartwarming. So both the girls have beautifully composed their song and sung it.
The musicals were surely very aesthetic, ma'am. It did give you an aesthetic satisfaction and connect to the theme. So beautifully done. Moving forward, so when in this particular era of VFX, the digital screens, and all those things, what do you think would be the status of puppetry? What would be the audience for puppetry?
I know puppetry is, I mean, VFX is it's all consuming, right? When you're in a space where it's just your senses are being bombarded with a lot of music and visuals. Of course, it's as I said, it takes up your mind space. But when you go to a puppet theater or where a puppet show is being shown, when you realize it actually engages your senses, all your senses, in a much at a much deeper level, because the stimulation is very gentle. So the music is gentle, the visuals are gentle, and the narration is gentle. So you are engaging a lot more because you have to you have to imagine the expression, as I mentioned before, where with a cartoon or with a person based show, the emotions are out there. So you don't have to use your imagination. With a puppet, the emotion is carved. But what is fascinating is as the story moves along, you actually start seeing them sad, you see them happy, you see them angry. That's because you're so engaged. So to answer your question, I feel puppetry has a huge place. If anything, it should be developed even more because in this noisy world, puppetry provides that solace, that comfort to engage with the story in a quieter way, just the way you want to engage, not necessarily you're being forced to react. You're not being forced to react. You could still interpret that scene uh, to the best of your ability based on what you see and hear. So I feel puppetry should be encouraged. It's a beautiful form. It has its place. I mean, VFX has its place, but puppetry surely has its place.
I love the statement, in this noisy world, puppetry gives you a solace. Yes, it does. And it speaks volumes, and it's something which we can touch and feel, which
Yes.
is not that with the VFX or with the digital screens. Correctly stated, ma'am. We would also like to know about your future plans to explore other aspects of India's rich cultural heritage.
India, a land of so many languages. It's a lifetime achievement to cover the whole of India, as you know. Whether you talk about the languages, the fabrics of India, or just the pure energy that each state brings to a story. So my first, I'd love to collaborate with people across India to add different languages, voiceovers to the puppet show. As of now, it's only available in Hindi and Gujarati. I mean, I haven't even covered my mother tongue Telugu yet. So there's so many more languages because in fact, yesterday was at the Pratham event. Pratham is another educational charity. And when you realize through my YouTube channel, I want my work to reach the villages of India in their language. That's the beauty of a filmed version of a puppet show because I can add voiceovers in different languages. So all they need is some network connection. Then they can actually engage with the story in their language. So
Mhm.
that to cover the length and breadth of India in the language that they are comfortable with itself is a challenge. And then, of course, outside the world, I've now this year done Italian. So there are many parts of the world that I would like the story to go. Because as I said, once they share the story, once they see the story, they are more closer to India. They're more appreciative of people who are Indians. I mean, it's like Shahrukh Khan. Everybody knows Shah Rukh Khan. He's done a huge favor to India because to him people know India. It's the same thing. So once I take this Ramayana to different countries in their language, more importantly in their language, they have that affinity towards that story. And I would like to do that with India. And of course, there are short stories that I'd like to cover. I have actually done short stories in Telugu, which is with grandparents as writers and narrators. And they're only 5 minutes long with beautiful Malgudi
Yes,
Day style music. But, and again, every part of India has stories, every part. India is a continent. I mean, India is
true,
a lifetime project.
true. Very
So
correctly stated, ma'am. Seriously.
bringing the best out of India takes a lifetime.
It's all for it, sure. So when we were talking about the India's cultural heritage, we talked about Ramayana. There are various versions of Ramayana which we hear: the Indonesian Ramayana, the Malaysian Ramayana. So how do you plan to connect other cultures with that of India?
Through Ramayana, you mean?
Not only restricted to Ramayana, but any other cultural means. So we have seen you working with Italy. We have seen you working with, in French. You've been working in Spanish, and so many different languages that you're working. What about connecting Indian culture with the culture of these countries as well, and coming up
Uh,
with, some sort of puppet shows and audiobooks related to this?
so Indian culture, as I said, to me, I'm taking the Ramayana and Indian independence as my two flagship stories because I'm incredibly passionate about the Ramayana and Indian independence. These are two stories that I wanted my sons to know inside out. And so those I'm now, in fact, I'll be going to the Blind Relief Association in Delhi because I'm producing the Indian independence audiobook in Hindi. with Blind Relief Association, students from there as my narrators. Um, so these are the two stories, again, connecting with other cultures. Like, for example, I could be going to Indonesia, but the version of the Ramayana will continue to be the same. It won't change just because it's Indonesia. So I'm happy to see their version, and they'll have to see our version, or what has been the consolidated version that we have produced, and then figure out how to understand the commonalities. But going forward, once I've covered my vast heritage, India, I'd love to I'd love to tap into the big stories from other parts of the world. So
So,
once I had come across a French family, and I was talking to them about stories from France. I asked, what is the one big story that you want everybody in France to know? And they said it's the French Revolution. I'm not a history student, so I'd love to understand the French Revolution as an hour-long audiobook written and narrated by teenagers. Because again, I know France, I understand there's a French culture, but do I know them very well? No. I know that you think of France as Paris as this fashion capital. There's a lot more culture to it, I mean, beyond fashion, right? So how would I know that as me, as a producer? To me, I want to understand the French Revolution. So I'd like to know that about one big story from each country, whether it's Indonesia or France or yeah, America. I mean, why don't we understand the big stories from them, and then we'll see more
absolutely.
affinity towards them.
Absolutely. So, something like we have the Panchatantra, which can be connected to the Aesop's fables. So,
Yes,
we have similarity between the both of them. So, such similarities would get it connected better to those people who are staying in that particular country. So, that would reach
yes.
to their hearts because they have already known about it.
I think it's about the language. And I now, Jayashree, now I understand what you said about. I was a little unsure how to answer that. It's like the Panchatantra, it's about the language. So I think with each generation, there's a small change in the language, uh, from how they're communicating, right? So the Panchatantra, even if I were to do an audiobook on the Panchatantra, the language would be a little bit more up to the current language. It will be more global because again, audiobooks I think are a brilliant way of engaging anybody who wants to work on their language, on their listening skills, and the art of storytelling. Because our audiobooks are always broken into smaller chapters. So it's only 5 minutes each chapter. So when you're listening to an audiobook, what happens is you are also listening to the pronunciation, you're listening to the phraseology. It's almost like you have the comfort of somebody reading something out to you. So initially, you may feel a little distracted because there's the language, there's only one sense is engaged. Because when you're reading, your vision is engaged. When you're listening, your hearing is engaged. But again, in India, where the not everybody has the privilege of somebody reading a story out to you, right? So if we can produce small audiobooks where somebody in a remote village in India who has access to the internet, they can just recount that story. They could just sit there and think and go into that story world because somebody is reading out. So at some point they become curious about a word or a phrase, and they say, "Oh, this." By repeatedly listening to that phrase and the word, it becomes a part of their dictionary. So I think it's a brilliant way of expanding not just their horizon, their vocabulary, their understanding of a language. So again, through my YouTube channel, I want my audiobooks to reach the world, definitely every part of India. I know at this point it feels as if the language is a little more complicated because the English has been written here by boys who are born in Britain. But I'm not too worried about that because I feel it becomes a stretch goal. So they may not understand one word today, but they'll look it up. Tomorrow they'll know that word. They're then moving on to the next word. So yeah.
Right, aptly stated. Ma'am, we have two questions from the audience. I could see Mr. Sayan from Kolkata has asked how to make school students learn the correct Indian civilization.
It ha- I only think everything from the point of view of stories. So I think anything complicated, especially as things get complicated, get them involved, and put it to them, get them to take expert advice. But how do you break it down into a smaller, more understandable uh, uh, part, right? So that can only happen if they're thinking about it from the point of a story. If they were to explain a certain concept as a story, there'll be a beginning, there'll be a middle, there'll be an end. So that
Mhm.
will help them break down that topic into a beginning, a middle, and an end. So they're already understanding it logically. So I feel stories are a brilliant way to break down the complexity of a topic.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have one more question from Ms. Nirmalaya Bhattacharya, again from West Bengal, who wants to know how to make our cultural history more relatable and enjoyable for the future generation.
It is a challenge. I will not disagree that in this day and age where there's so much stimulation and so much content, how do you get them to engage with history and culture and religious facets of any faith? I think parents have to be engaged. It has to be more. It has to be discussed. I know that's a privilege of a certain section of the society to sit down and discuss. But I think the more you discuss it, the more you show them the importance of how this culture has evolved or how the civilization has evolved. So we are all beneficiaries of what our forefathers did. Today we are living in independent India. That's because 75 years ago, people made sure that we had an independent country. Today we are talking on Zoom because technologists actually worked on it and created this beautiful software where we can be worlds apart, but we are connected. So the only way it works is by actually sitting down and having a conversation and breaking it down into smaller, more palatable sections and get creative. Otherwise, there are too many distractions. Otherwise, it's difficult to engage with one topic. So to sustain that interest, the whole family has to be engaged. Unless they're so driven. At a younger age, I feel, because the more you discuss, the more you see that there's a point in it. If you don't discuss, then you think, okay, I was born and I don't care. I have a cell phone. I didn't know. I don't care how my forefathers lived, or like I didn't have a cell phone.
True.
But when we talk about it, oh my God, then in those days we had no choice but to wait for the landline to ring to communicate. So we need to talk. I think talking is important.
Stories, of course, have been mesmerizing throughout. It's be it small children or the adults. Until the time the story is going to keep you mesmerized, puppetry is going to do so, because that gives an imagination, that gives wings to your imagination when it comes to puppetry. So, Ma'am Nilima, it had been indeed a pleasure for us to have been interacting with you on this particular concept of puppetry into the field of education, puppetry being used as a tool to make people aware about the civilization and the rich cultural heritage that India has. Thank
Absolutely.
you and best wishes to you for your future endeavors along with your two wonderful sons. And we
Thank you.
surely would like to move ahead and see any of your programs in India.
I
Thank
would
you
love
so very
to.
much. And thank you, Vidyadhan, to have connected us. Thank you, Mr. Prashant.
And you could always check out my website, storyart.co.uk. Everything that we do is free. So it's easily accessible. It's broken down into smaller chunks, the audiobooks. And please do check them out and listen to them, share them, because that is what will help me do more work.
Sure, sure.
Thank
Good to
you.
know about lot many things related to puppetry. Best wishes to you.
Many
God
thanks,
bless.
Yash.